This is a buggy that we're going to go through the process of restoring, rebuilding for a buggy that sits in Idaho. This top was not initially made for the particular buggy that it's going to go on. Most tops have to be made individual to each individual buggy. So we have to do some modifications to this top to make it fit the buggy that it's going to fit now. Now what I've done is taken the time to simulate the framework so that it will be in the correct position when I repair it, as it will be when it sits on the buggy. So the back half of this buggy top is going to be okay because it is mounted onto a shifting rail, and they've modified the buggy to accommodate the shifting rail. So this socket is straight, all the joint work is correct how it sits. However, the front half of this top needs some adjustment so that it fits correctly onto the new buggy. This socket is not vertical where it should be, so it needs to be straightened, put in a straight position. To do that, we're going to have to lengthen the joint work here. We're going to have to redo some of the inside workings of this top. We'll stand it up. That will help these joints here be in a straight line where they should be instead of having this dip to them. So we've got to get the upholstery off of this, and we'll save it where we need to so we can have an idea of maybe how the design was. But we'll get the upholstery off and begin to fix the framework before we can actually start to reupholster this top. Then it will fit correctly to the new buggy that it is going to fit on. So this is what we look like when we have all the upholstery off down to the framework. So from here we'll take it apart, make the adjustments, we'll lengthen this joint, we'll stand up the front bows, we'll take out some of the bends as best we can, and show you how all that works. I'm going to take a piece of light string. This is some kind of a twine. I use it for tufting. If I can drop it here. I'm going to tie a loop in one end here, and we're going to simulate what the joint needs to be. And kind of let this go to where I think it's going to be kind of square. With a square, can I kind of get an eyeball of what I think it needs to be. I'm going to go a little forward here. I would say in there, somewhere close, is where we want to be the length of our joint. Well, I'm going to take and tie this off. Probably can't see it, but that's okay. I'm going to put a climbing half hitch on here to hold it in place. 28.5. So if we brought this side back also to 28.5, we should have our two sockets parallel to each other, which they're looking pretty close. So this center joint needs to be 28.5 inches long, as compared to right now that it's only 24 inches. So we need to add 4.5 inches in here. So this pair of bows here are pretty close to the same height. Eyeball 39.5, eyeball 39.5 to the underneath side. So these joints, this knuckle in this joint should be fairly close to the center, which this one is. That way when these come together, they're going to sandwich up just about in that position. So this is the string that I've measured on the top, and this will be the new 28.5-inch length that I want to sit on the top props. And then the center here, you see I've taken a marker and I put right where the bend is going to be, and that's where the joint needs to be. So when this is folded up, when the joint is folded, this is where the center of the joint needs to be, and we'll come down to the ends on the 28.5. So what I need to do is take these old joints that are only 24 inches, and we're going to add about 4.5 inches. So we're going to, and in order to do this to where it fits correctly, I've got a little jig that I've built specifically for making top joints, and I'll show you how that works. So this is the jig that I have made just for making top joints. It has one post here that is welded stationary, and most all these have 7/16 holes in the end, so I have a 7/16 rod that one end of the joint will fit to. Then I have a sliding, what I call kind of your sliding anvil. This is a support rest that's straight in line between these two posts. The second post, I have a little locking screw on it, and it slides so I can accommodate different lengths of joints. In this case of this 24, I could slide it to the 24, lock it down, and then make multiple joints, and they're all going to be the same. So in the case of these joints that I need to lengthen, I'm going to take my string and mount it on the two posts and stretch it out where the joint would be, and I'm going to lock that down. So in the center, you can tell where my knuckle needs to be. That knuckle needs to remain right there, but you can see the difference where the ends need to be. So what this allows me to do is I'm going to take and cut this on both ends, and I'm going to have to add a space in there, and I have some oval iron that'll match these top joints. Now that we have the joints fixed, one thing I might point out that there is a style to these joints. When you run a straight edge from the center of this top prop to the center of this top prop, and actually the center of any top prop in one joint, if you run a straight line across from center to center, if I can hold this here, you'll notice that this joint is below the line of the center of these two props. Center of this joint would be down here about 3/8 of an inch below. Well, what that does is when this joint is brought into position, it passes the straight line of the top props and goes below. So that actually helps this prop stay locked shut when it's in an extended position and the top is up. Now this is accented even to a greater degree in this back joint. This is what actually keeps the whole top up. So if I run a straight edge from the center of this top prop to the center of the iron that connects it at the bottom, you can see because of this bend at the bottom and because of the position of these bows, let me hold it there, you can see how much further below this straight line the center of this joint is. And that's what actually helps it lock into position and keeps the top up more securely while the top's being driven. Sometimes in old tops you'll see that there's a spring-loaded mechanism on here that actually keeps pressure on it. But when this is put into somewhat of an S-curve, some of them even have more of a curve here to accent this, but that's the purpose of these things being offset. If you look at the end of these joints, let me bring it up. See the end of these joints, this circle isn't straight off of the end of this iron. It comes up and the main bulk of the circle of the eye, see, is above. Well, that's what helps drop the center knuckle joint below the center line, which helps keep the joint in position. So that's why we have this little design difference here, and that's why we have curves on the back of some of the joints when they're the main joints that are holding the top in its upright position.